small. I need better glasses, speaking of human factors. But, this one's really easy to tell which one. Now, it does take a little space from the plane that you're actually using, so there's a trade-off here. I've also seen ovens where they have like a little icon under the burner, and they put a little circle in the position where the burner is. Those people are thinking also. But these people, they weren't thinking at all, and they don't care how much gas you waste, and the environmental people are like, hey, you're burning gas you don't need. I mean, it's all terrible. So this is all job security for people like me. So I wanted to show you a little more complex example. This is actually a Honeywell display that's used in a process control plant. My colleague at University of Virginia, Stephanie Verlaine, used to work for Honeywell. I used to work for IBM. We joke that we always just talk about the places we used to work and tell our students, and because it's the only thing we know. But let's say you were watching this display and you were trying to understand if something was out of kilter with your process. Oh my gosh. So she redesigned it and made an overview display, and you can kind of see over here, I don't know what this is, but that red thing's going to get your attention. And if you click on it, it'll highlight the field that is out of kilter, and it'll give you a little display telling you what's going on, and if gray is bad, this is telling you that that thing was out of kilter. And I don't really care what this is, but this is much easier to control than looking at just screens of numbers changing, and you'd be surprised how many industrial plants you can go into and see that. The last little bit of background I want to give you, and I promise that Ellen DeGeneres always says, and my name is Ellen, so maybe it's something genetic with our names, but I do have a point here, and you're going to see that this process is very similar to the social influence model, but just bear with me. So you come up with this product concept, and you want to figure out how people are going to use your product, so you do a task analysis. From that task analysis, because you understand how people do their tasks, you can then think about what the requirements are for your system. And then you're going to prototype it. You're going to put it in front of users for user review and testing. They're going to show you all the things that's wrong with your system. You're going to redesign your system and finalize it. Finally, you're going to implement the real one, not the mock little prototype. And then you're going to put it out in the field. It's not going to work very well in certain cases, and so you're going to iterate through the process. And this is just a really simple example you don't need to look at, just an outline form of a task analysis for a camera. But just imagine you were trying to design a digital camera, and you'd have to think, well, who are my users? Are they novices? Are they professional photographers? And you'd have to very much focus on your users and think about what are the tasks are they going to do? Are they in lighting? Are they not in lighting? Do they know how to focus? Do we need autofocus? And how are we going to get that information? We're going to interview them. We're going to do questionnaires. We might do surveys. We might bring them in and give them examples to play with. And we're going to go through an iterative design with prototypes, and we're going to include our participants, our end users, in our design. Now, let me apologize for this, but every time I think about the user-centered design process and the social influence model, the Ella Fitzgerald and Louis Armstrong song, Let's Call the Whole Thing Off, starts going off in my head. And those of you who don't know what this song is, you can find it on YouTube. But it's the one that says, you say either and I say either. It's that song. And I won't sing anymore because I'm an engineer for a reason. But you say collect baseline data, and I say characterize end user decision making. Okay? You say develop simple, truthful, and consistent messages that highlight whatever you're doing, in my case, lower risk drinking norms and protective behavior. I say develop functional requirements. You say ensure credibility of the message source, and I say user review and testing. And you say deliver the message to the target population, I say field test. And you say support message retention, and I say iterate. So, let's not call the whole thing off, because there's really a very natural linkage. It's just, like typical academics, we don't use the same words for things, and therefore we don't read each other's talk to the person next door in your own department that's doing the exact same thing that you're doing, because why should you? They're just next door. So, with apologies to Ella Fitzgerald and Louis Armstrong, I mean, there is a very natural linkage between what you're doing and what I'm doing. It's just that you would never think of it unless you happen to have the life that I've had. So I'm going to explain to you now, how did I actually figure out that this linkage occurred, and what am I doing at a social norms conference? So the first thing I have to say is that, clearly I've had an evolving career, because I was designing, air traffic control displays, and now I'm making posters that we're hanging up at UVA, that say there are better ways to get home from a night out. So, but in my mind, it's the same work. So, either there's, it's clearly there's something wrong with how I'm thinking, but somehow it's working for me, so just bear with me. So, in my field, we have to characterize and model human judgment and decision making, and so do you. You have to understand how people worry about protective behaviors and negative consequences, and I'm making sure that airplanes don't fall out of the sky so because the pilot's going to press a button and, something's going to happen. So we have to think about how people make judgments. I'm figuring out research designs to develop decision support interventions. Well, so are you. I mean, you're trying to make sure that people are making good decisions, whether it's an advertisement, whether it's an educational program. You're trying to figure out, what can I design, what can I do to actually change people's behaviors? I develop training, so I work on methods to evaluate, develop and evaluate training. So do you. The projects that I'm interested in want to have a tangible impact on society. No one's going to argue that keeping planes from crashing is a bad idea, and it doesn't help people. And no one's going to argue that making sure our students make it to be alumni is a bad idea. These have tangible impact on society. And the students love that. And the collaborators love that. Because as much fun as it is for some people to publish in the obscure journal of academic articles, most people don't get the kick from that. And they get the kick from doing something meaningful. Now this is going to blow up the next bullet in a minute. So let me just talk about risk-taking. It's very difficult as a tenured faculty member to say that I'm a risk taker. It's very difficult to say, a person who worked for IBM, I mean, what could be more conservative than working for, what could be more conservative than going to University of Pennsylvania or going to University of Virginia? I mean, some of the oldest, most solid, programs in the country. Well, let me just tell you that having undergraduate students studying people choosing not to pee on their neighbor's bushes when they get drunk is not considered traditional engineering content. And it's taken my faculty a really long time to get their head around this issue. And all you got to do is ignore people long enough until you get invited to be a keynote speaker somewhere, and then all of a sudden, oh my gosh, you're like, good for you for doing that work. So you just have to, people don't necessarily share your value system, and eventually it'll come around. But the thing I wanted to really highlight here was that second to last bullet. So you saw my background. Did you see anything about teaching in there? I wasn't a TA because my advisor had mental illness, so I had to go get a job. I never taught anything in my life, and yet I'm a professor and I'm supposed to teach, and I teach hundreds of students, and I'm supposed to develop pedagogical interventions that not only teach the students but engage them, and then we have these millennial students now that have really short attention spans. And you can't just make them do stuff. Oh, and I'm teaching engineers, and they're actually in a mini trade school, so they actually have to be able to do something when they're done, right?